In the last class, we dealt with the topics of liquid pressure, how a manometer works, or how we can measure liquid pressure using a manometer. The next topic in our chapter is the laws of liquid pressure. So what are the laws of liquid pressure? In your book you shall find there are 5 laws. So what are these laws? The first law says that a liquid exerts pressure on the walls of its container. So if I have, say, a glass here, and if this glass contains any liquid, for our example we take water. If it contains any liquid, then all the water molecules will exert pressure on the walls of the container, that is along the cylindrical directions, and also at the base of the container. The liquid also exerts a pressure here on the upward direction, but because the air molecules here exert an atmospheric pressure on the water surface, this pressure here often gets cancelled. So what we can say is that it exerts pressure on the walls of the container. Next, the next principle says that how much pressure a liquid will exert depends upon its density. So this is what I have written here, that pressure P is proportional to density rho. The pronunciation is rho, it's a Greek letter. So pressure that is exerted by a liquid is proportional to density. Greater the density, more will be the pressure exerted. So again, if I take 2 glasses, in one glass I take oil and in other glass I take water. I suppose you know that density of water is greater than density of oil. That is why if in a glass you take water and then you pour a little bit of oil over it, you will find that the oil is floating. The reason is density of oil is much less than density of water. So from this what we can say, the pressure which is exerted by water will obviously be greater than the pressure which is exerted by oil, because water's density is greater than oil. The next consequence or the next law of liquid pressure is that the pressure exerted by a liquid column is directly proportional to the depth of the liquid column, which means again consider 2 glasses like this. Say in one glass I take this much liquid and in other glass I take this much liquid. Now which one has water up to greater height? This one. If this one is height h1 and this one is height h2, then the water depth h1 is greater than the water depth h2. That is visible from the diagram itself. Laws of liquid pressure says as a result pressure 1 will be greater than pressure 2 because this height is greater. Now combining what we did in the last law and this law, as I said last day that there is a formula, pressure exerted by any liquid column is equal to h rho g, where h is this depth, rho is the density and g is the acceleration due to gravity. This formula you should study in class 9, but you can see clearly therefore that pressure is directly dependent on the height of the liquid column as well as the density of the liquid column. Next, at a certain depth, a liquid exerts the same pressure in all directions. So if say this is a lake and I am considering the liquid at this point, say this point is 300 meters below the free surface of the lake. So at this point the water that is present, so this is an amount of water that I consider, it will exert the same pressure in all directions. Left, right, front, back, in all directions it will exert the same pressure. So for a certain height, the pressure in all the directions is same. Pressure changes with changes in height, but at a certain height, in all the directions, same pressure is exerted. It does not vary with the direction. Finally, the last level or the last law of the liquid pressure is that a liquid always seeks its own level. So what does this mean? Consider this. Suppose there is a test tube like this. This is a test tube. Suppose there is a glass like this. Say all of these are connected with one another. Then I consider a bent glass rod like this. It is bent, curved. After that I consider a beaker like this. So these are 4 glass containers which I have kept on a table. This is a test tube. This is a normal glass as we see in our home. This is a bent glass rod, and this is, say, a conical flask. And all of them are connected with each other. And then I start pouring water from here. I pour water. You will find amazingly that after a certain time, all of these containers will have water till the same level, the same height each. Though you see that conical flask is having a greater volume of water because the base is broader, the bent glass tube is having the least amount of water, and for the glass and test tube it's intermediate. Though the volume of water is varying, height is the same. So this law is also known as that a liquid seeks its own level. What does this mean? It means that based on what is the pressure that is acting on the liquid, it will seek its own level. That means the liquid will determine its own level. You or I cannot control the level that the liquid will take in any kind of body like this, whatever be the geometrical shape, as long as the liquid pressure is existing. So the liquid always seeks its own level, and this is the reason that we generally build the tanks containing water at the top of our houses, because from there the liquid, since there is a pressure difference, the liquid naturally flows below to our rooms, to our taps, because it seeks its own level. So whatever is the pressure of the liquid, it will always try to equalize that. That is the main point here. Which brings us to our next area, which is known as the Pascal's law. So Pascal's law was basically named after this French physicist by the name of Blaise Pascal, and it is after him the unit of pressure is also named. So what is this Pascal's law? As per the definition, Pascal's law says that if you have a confined and incompressible liquid, that's keyword, if you have a confined and incompressible liquid. Incompressible means liquids which you cannot compress into a smaller volume by applying pressure. If you can, that's compressible. If you can't, that's incompressible. Water is mostly incompressible. So any kind of confined and incompressible fluid, not just liquid, if you exert pressure on it, that pressure is propagated uniformly in all directions throughout the liquid. That is what Pascal's law says. So suppose we consider this. Say this is a conical flask with a long neck, and say in the flask there are some small holes at these points. So initially this conical flask is filled with water, and say here a piston is connected. If you apply a pressure on the piston, we basically apply a force, and whatever is the area of the piston, force divided by that area will be the pressure we are exerting. So the pressure we exert on the piston, since this fluid here is a confined and incompressible fluid, that pressure will be propagated uniformly throughout the fluid. As a result, that pressure that we apply here will be communicated uniformly. The fluid will have the tendency to exert that pressure on the walls of its container, and whenever it will find a hole, from that hole water will spew out because of this pressure. So that's an experiment or a demonstration to show that whatever Pascal said in the Pascal's law, that's really a true phenomenon. It does happen in practice. So I quote whatever the definition of Pascal's law is given in your book, it says that according to this law, whenever a pressure is applied at any point on an incompressible and confined liquid or fluid, it is transmitted equally, which I said propagated equally in all possible directions with undiminished magnitude. Each and every word here is a keyword. You also have to state with undiminished magnitude, because what that means is that the pressure that you exert here at the piston is equal in magnitude to the pressure with which the water is coming out. It has not diminished or reduced in magnitude. The magnitude also remains the same. Now there are certain consequences of this liquid pressure as well, just like the pressure we did earlier. What are these consequences? One of them we already discussed, it's the consequence of the dam walls. As I showed you in a diagram, that in general, if you look at the picture of the structures of dam, you will find that the base of the dams are much more broader in their size than the upper portion of the dam. That is because, say the dam is stopping this amount of water. By the time the water column reaches the base, there is a great height of water above it, and because pressure is directly proportional to height, due to this immense height, the pressure that the water exerts here at the base of the dam is much times greater than the pressure that it is exerting here at the top of the dam. Pressure increases with depth. Depth here is more than the depth here from the free surface. As a result, base of the dams are made much more thicker. Another example is the suits of the sea divers. You might have seen pictures of sea divers. So they dive into this kind of seas and oceans where they often study aquatic animals and for many other purposes as well. But when they dive into the sea and ocean, what they are doing is they are basically at a great depth from the free surface of the liquid. Quite obvious. Say this is the free surface of the sea, and the diver is somewhere here, which is, say, for example, 100 meters from the free surface of the sea. That is where the diver is. So that's a huge amount of pressure. Pressure is equal to height into density into gravity. And what's the height? It's 100 meters. Density of water is 1000 kg per meter cube, and the acceleration due to gravity is 10 meter per second square. So you see 1, 3, that's 4, 2. 10 to the power 6 pascals. So immense amount of pressure acts on the bodies of the divers. If the diver does not wear a special kind of protective suit, what is going to happen is the body of the diver will be crushed by the atmospheric pressure. Okay, so if there is not a protective suit that the sea divers wear, this immense amount of pressure, 10 to the power 6 pascals, will lead to crushing the body of the divers. So they need to wear special suits. Water tanks, another application in our daily life. Close to our home, you will find near that park that there is this kind of a water tank, huge in structure, supported by pillars. And if you calculate from the height from the ground, it's also written here on the tank if you read the details. It's quite high, comparable to a 6 or 7 story building. Why is the water tank so high? Why did they not build the tank just here near the ground? The reason is, since the water tank is at a such greater height from the ground, this H is much higher. H higher means pressure is also higher. Density and gravity is not in our hand. They are constant for water. What we can change is the height. So by increasing the height, the pressure of the water is high. As a result, whether you stay in a 1-story building or you stay in a 5-story building, since this one is at the greatest height, somewhere here, the water tank is somewhere here, when that water by pipelines is connected to your house, it comes at the required pressure. If your house was taller than the water tank, then to send the water to your house, you would have again required a pump to push this water against gravity. That is why water tanks are at a such greater height. You can do this experiment yourself, like if you have connections from the water pump to a 5-story building, and then you also know some tap which is connected to this water tank and which is at the ground level, at the level of a 1-story building. you shall find that the pressure of water is greater for this tap at the 1-story building's height as compared to the tap which is at the 5-story building height. This is because, say if this is the water tank and this is the 5-story building, the height difference is something like this, h1. But if this is the water tank and this is a 1-story building, the height difference is something like this, h2. And obviously h2 is greater than h1, so the pressure is also greater for that case. So in the next class we shall be talking about atmospheric pressure.